Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there's a lot that this government can be proud of. I'm certainly proud of the fact that there are tens of thousands more elective surgeries every year, that not a single cancer patient has had to fly to Australia for treatment, that immunisation rates are at record high levels, particularly amongst the most vulnerable, and those that traditionally haven't had high rates, Maori and Pacifica. I'm very proud of the fact that our NCEA2 rates are now tracking towards the optimal rates, because NCEA2 is the baseline for getting on in life. I'm very proud of the fact that we require our job seekers to seek jobs, actually. And I'm proud of the fact that this is the first government in more than 40 years to increase social welfare support for the most vulnerable. So there is plenty to be proud of. But there's more work to do. And I stand to speak specifically in respect of the annual reviews to the annual review of the Inland Revenue Department. Now, some might think that's being a bit masochistic, given the 12 days or so of breathless revelations that we've had around matters to do with tax. And in fact, I have to firstly acknowledge my predecessor, the Honourable Todd McClay, former Minister of Revenue, who said to me in December around the issue of revenue, "You'll really enjoy it," he said. "Being a chartered accountant, it's quite policy focused, a bit pointy-headed, but it doesn't get much publicity. One oral question from the opposition in 2 years and 4 months, and it's really quiet on the media front." Well, it hasn't been that quiet lately, Mr. Chairman. It's been rather busy on the media front when it comes to matters in relation to tax. But I want to acknowledge that department for the excellent work they do. In order to pay for the sorts of social services and supports that Ms Dyson talks about, that I'm very proud of, what we need are two things. We need a very strong tax policy framework, and we need a very strong tax administration framework. And in the tax administration space, of course, Inland Revenue Department carry out that very important function. So in reviewing their performance, it takes two dimensions. They're a very large organisation, obviously. They have over $700 million appropriated to them, and they employ over 5,800 staff. But of course, they are also responsible for collecting over $60 billion from the taxpayer, and they need to be able to do that efficiently and effectively. And so it's against that backdrop that they are embarking on what can only be described as the single largest transformation of the way in which government Crown entity does business, perhaps in this country's recent history. It's a $1.5 billion commitment of expenditure, superficially, at least on the face of it, on an IT system. But of course, those who are in the middle of that transformation know that this is much, much more than just a computer system. This is about the way in which we engage with the taxpayers, particularly the business taxpayers, the way we encourage compliance with our tax rules and ensure the efficient collection of the funds that we require to provide the health, education, social services, law and order, transport and so on in this country. And I must say, having had the experience of going through the immigration transformation, a much, much smaller project, it was a fairly daunting prospect to have a $1.5 billion transformation project underway. And I have to say I am very greatly reassured at the manner in which IRD and its stakeholder partners and its software providers are embarking on this, because there are so many risks in this. I think there are things that can certainly go wrong, but I have confidence that we've got the right people, the right resources, the right program to be able to deliver that. And it's pretty important now, because yesterday we made some very, very big announcements about simplifying the process of paying tax for our small business community. And what we know, Mr Chairman,
the Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
More than 97% of businesses in New Zealand are small or medium. They employ 50 staff or fewer. That is the backbone of this economy. 97%. 90% of them employ fewer than 20 staff. So we really do have a large archipelago of small businesses in New Zealand that are the backbone of this economy. They're the farming community, the plumbers, the carpenters, the people that are helping us rebuild Canterbury and so on. So it's important to be able to have a tax framework that fits their needs, not the other way round. And for far too long, the tax system in this country requires the business community and the individual taxpayers to comply with rigid structures that the IRD set for them. And the best example of that is in provisional tax. Anybody who's spoken with the small business community for years will know that this has been a significant bugbear of theirs, because payment 3 times a year does not fit with a normal business cycle. It doesn't fit with seasonal businesses, many of which are in our primary industries, and it certainly has been difficult to comply, easy to get wrong, and quite costly to get wrong. So to announce yesterday that the business community from 1st of April 2018, thanks to this transformation, will be able to pay their income tax as they earn it, has been very, very well received. And it's a quite simple concept of using their accounting software to fit in with the IRDs, not the other way round. Having calculated the accounting income, the small business will then be able to pay the income tax due on that, or claim a refund on it, of course, if they, because of seasonal fluctuations, produce an accounting loss in that 2-month period. It's already going along with the GST changes that we've already announced. And as a consequence of that, there will be a much reduced burden of use of money interest. We've increased the number of small businesses that, if they still choose to pay the traditional provisional tax way, that will be able to be covered by the safe harbour provisions of the uplift. We're removing the punitive monthly penalties for late or non-payment, which will also be very greatly received. And this is a very smart package, but it does require the business transformation to proceed in a timely manner so that we can get to the start line on the 1st of April 2018 and enable businesses to benefit from it. Now, I want to finish by commending the Inland Revenue Department and its staff and all of its staff, because they have been caught in the crossfire of a political narrative that's been most unhelpful, I think, and untrue, frankly. We can be very proud of our tax policies in this country and our tax disclosures. And they are policies that were established, including by the 4th Labor government, endorsed by the 5th Labor government, particularly Dr Michael Cullen when he was Minister of Revenue in 2006, and said, we need a disclosure regime around foreign trusts, and we'll put one in. And it was fit for purpose. I see, it's not, so Mr Robertson says, oh, it's a few years on now. No, that's not time that's the difference, Mr Chairman. It's not time that's the difference, it's who's in government. Let's be very clear about why this is such a political opportunity for Labor. It is a pity they don't understand tax and the fact that foreign citizens earning income in foreign countries have no tax liability here in New Zealand. That seems to be completely lost on them. In fact, a lot is lost on them, either being very tin-eared or a bit obtuse about actually what the tax rules are. But I want to say to the Inland Revenue Department staff, and particularly those working in international tax and multinational base erosion strategies in combination with the OECD, that I have confidence in them, that I hold them in high regard, that you won't hear me coming to this House and naming and criticising public officials who are doing an excellent job. And I think there are members of this House who need to reflect as they go through this financial review on the very high regard and the very good public sector officials that we have in IRD and right across government, and the excellent work that they do. And when we compare ourselves with other jurisdictions, I think that's something that we can be very proud of.
Minka Pfeiffer.